have some guest cards will be in the back and pins. If you'll fill one of those out, your name, phone number, email, who referred you, and we will see that they get in contact with you, or somebody will get in contact with you to give you more information if you're interested.
All right, here we go. Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys for having me. And this is really a fat burning workshop. I don't know how much time you have, but as you get restless, I'll notice and we'll rush through it. I'm here actually with a company called Pruvit. It's got a really neat product, but this is more of an educational workshop. I think if you take this information out of here, you'll know more than most trainers based on my experience, because I was a trainer for some time. I can't take credit. These guys are really kind of the mentors and metabolic experts that have taught me a lot of this, and a lot of it's trial and error. Look them up on Facebook, because if you follow these guys, you'll get tons of helpful hints, tips. Jimmy Leach, fat burning coach, is in my backyard in Columbia, South Carolina. Tony Freeman, one of the biggest skeptics. He's an IFBB pro bodybuilder he's 50 years old, and he's top 10 in the world for the last 10 years. Anytime someone's a top 10 of anything in the world, it's pretty special. So they get most of the credit for all this, and that's just to show how little I actually look. So this is just kind of a silly commercial, but I think it makes sense and kind of ties everything in. So we'll just watch this real quick. Uh-oh. You what? Sorry. It's not part of the presentation. Hey, my name is Rob DeBoer. This is Jimmy Leach and Tony, and this is just to show how little I look. Now are we back on? Okay. Yeah. This is just a little goofy commercial that'll kind of tie everything together.
Sam, what are you eating? What? It's my new diet. Kind of looks like a bowl of sugar. It is a bowl of sugar. You know that's not good for you, right? Sure it is. It's gluten-free. Yeah, I guess technically it's gluten-free. No fat either. Yeah, but it's a bowl of sugar. Organic sugar. Yeah. Alright, Dom. You heard about Sam's new diet? I know. How good is it? The great thing is too, sugar's thousands of years old, so it fits right in with my paleo diet. Guys, you know sugar's super bad for you, right? I mean, obesity, tooth decay, diabetes. Oh, really? I don't remember seeing anything about that on the Instagram pages I follow. Oh, that reminds me. Hashtag clean eating. Am I right? Whoa, man, do you know how much pesticide they put on apples? Yeah, Zach, if you're not going to look after your body, I'm not sure we can be friends. No, let's go to the solarium, Sam. Good day.
So kind of a silly little parody, but isn't it true though? I mean, everything was, trans fat free and, low carb, low fat, no trans fat, and then paleo and gluten free. And most people don't even know what half that means, but it's just trendy. And I can tell you this, fat loss is not a fad. There's a proven way to do it. Most people do it wrong, but it really is kind of about some of these lifestyle things. So here's really kind of the goal. We'll try to do this, as quick as we can, but really just walk away knowing like the difference between weight loss and fat loss. Understand what food nutrients are. There's a lot of common misunderstandings and mistakes in the industry. And literally, I think you can walk out here tonight and tomorrow morning, not wonder if it's going to work, not a flawed system. It will just flat out work if you follow some of these principles. So let's start with metabolism. You know, if you ask someone to define that, most people don't know, but basically it's how well your body uses the food that you consume and converts that for fuel into fuel for your body. So when we say someone has fast metabolism, right, we know what that means. It means they can eat anything they want, and we hate them because they still look like a swimsuit model, right? Someone has slow metabolism. It's basically, they stand by food and they gain weight, right? I've heard all that. Here's really kind of, I think, so important, and most people miss this. In fact, most trainers will probably never ask their client this. And if you have a trainer and they've never asked you this, then you might want to find a new trainer. And here's why. Basal metabolic rate is like entering in the current location into your GPS, right? You may know where you want to go, gain weight, lose weight, tone up, feel great, whatever that is. But just like your GPS, you have to enter in a current location. And here's what happens 9 out of 10 times. And this is fat burning coach Jimmy Leach taught this. A lot of what you see here is stuff that I can't take credit for because I was wrong on half of it. But now it's really kind of important for me to get it out because it makes so much sense. But at the end of the day, your basal metabolic rate is how many calories you need to survive. So if you just laid in bed all day, blinked your eyes, breathe, whatever, that's your benchmark. That's what you have to get to survive. So the higher your BMR, the better your body is at using calories, the better your metabolism is. So we want a high BMR. The lower your BMR, the worse off you are. So we're going to look at the variables that affect that, okay? And what I've seen 9 out of 10 times is most people, number one, don't know their basal metabolic rate. And number two, most people that can't lose weight or feel better or whatever don't eat enough and they do too much cardio. Think about that for a minute. I'm about to tell you how to eat more and do less exercise, right? And that, I mean, count me in, but that's a fact, okay? So these are all the factors that affect that. Some we control, some we don't. But as you can see highlighted, one that we probably can control more than any is our nutrition. We don't necessarily need to figure this out right now. We'll push this out on Twitter or Facebook or just get it to you. But this is how everybody in this room, if you did nothing else, if you plugged in your numbers, so, you know, Terry Arthur, you know, 655, and then you take your weight. Well, I'm not going to plug in your numbers. But at the end of the day, you're going to know where you should be. So tomorrow morning, just for one day for fun, count your calories. And if you're like most people, you'll be low. Your body thinks it's starving, doesn't care what it looks like in a bathing suit, doesn't care what its body fat percent is. Your body wants to survive. And if you don't know that basal metabolic rate, chances are you're not hitting it. And that's why you think you hit a plateau, and that's why you think you're stuck. We already talked about the biggest factor will be the food you eat, okay? And we're going to talk about, you know, why that is, how it makes sense. But here's first and foremost, you know, stating the obvious, food does not have ingredients. Food's food. Like steak is steak. Rice is rice. But if you go to the grocery store and you buy a bag of rice, the first ingredient and only ingredient, what do you think it is? Rice. But if you buy Uncle Ben's rice, steam it in a bag, right? It's already tastes good. There's like 18 ingredients. Most you can't pronounce. So understand, if you took nothing else away, just look at the labels. The more ingredients it has, the worse off it is. Okay? Food sources. Plant, animal, micro, macro. We talk about micronutrients, macronutrients. Most people don't even know the difference, but you really do. Micros are, just think vitamins and minerals. Macros, there's 3 that you know them well. Protein, carbs, fats. Okay? Carbohydrates. It's the most prominent source of energy. It's fast burning. It's kind of like gasoline. Converts to what's called glucose in your body. And glucose is one of 2 fuel sources that your body operates on. There's 2 and only 2 known to the human race, and that is glucose and what's called ketones. Everybody in this room, by and large, have never experienced ketones as a fuel source unless you've gone through a ketogenic diet. Okay? And here's why carbohydrates are favorable. Well, so let's break it down. 4 calories per gram. But it's important to note, any excess carbs converted to glucose, that excess energy, what do you think your body does? Stores it as fat. Think of this real quick, because I think it helps people visualize this. And my buddy Jimmy, he's kind of the mentor of mine, and he came up with this idea. So this is basically, humans can get up and walk and grab our food, right? Plants can't. They just can't get up and go to the refrigerator, open the door, and grab something to eat. So they get their food from their environment. Sunlight, carbon dioxide, carbo, hydration, water. That's where we get carbohydrate. Okay? That creates sugar, glucose, and oxygen. So that's what creates their fuel source. So think about this. So when we eat those carbohydrates, anything that's extra is stored as fat. Now I want you to think of this word picture. Think of a potato, right? Plant can't go make its own food, or can't go get its own food, so it makes it. All the excess food is stored as a potato. Does that make sense? So now, it doesn't matter if it's a turnip, a potato, a whatever. That's the great word picture of what happens to that glucose when there is excess. You know, I was thinking, like in South Carolina where I'm from, they have the state fair and they have like the biggest turnip and the biggest potato and whatever. You know how they do that? They just feed it more vitamins and minerals. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of relevance there. Protein, 4 calories. There's some essential amino acids, some non-essential amino acids. Bottom line, your body is made up of protein. Your hair, your nails, everything about you is made up of protein. Your muscles, everything. Again, protein. Excess, people think, well, gosh, I just get rid of the protein. No. Protein will convert into glucose. And what happens to glucose that we don't use? Stored as fat. Okay? Then we've got fats. How do you think fats are stored? As fat. Right? But they're super important, but I think really to keep this basic. So there's our 3 macronutrients known to mankind. Protein, excess, stored as fat. Carbs, excess, stored as fat. Fat, stored as fat. All right? Here's what's interesting. Break down any label. And again, I don't know if this is too basic. I think it's just important because it really puts into perspective everything we talk about. It'll just help it make sense. So, for example, my favorite Little Debbie honey bun, 13 grams of fat. So now you know, times it by 9, 117 calories. 30 carbs, remember there's 4 calories per gram. There's 120 calories. And then 3 grams of protein times 4. Okay, so our total calorie count, if you look up here, right, 250, 240, we're in the ballpark. Except it wouldn't be a Little Debbie, it would be Big Deborah, right? So, if you eat too many Little Debbies, you're not going to be little, you're going to be big. And they're going to call you Deborah. So think about this for a moment. We've got a product, and we're not here to explain a product as much as we are to educate you on what's happening in the industry. Y'all don't realize this, but you know the food pyramid? It's about to be flipped upside down. Because right now the food companies are what controls it. And there's just too much evidence against that. It's just wrong. Fat is not bad. Okay? So imagine now all of a sudden you've got glucose and you've got ketones. 2 fuel sources. The only 2 known to mankind. The only 2 the human race can and will use. But only 1 glucose has been available since the time you were born. Unless you went into what's called nutritional ketosis. cut all carbs out, lower your protein, increase your fats, and ketones are a byproduct of fat, beta oxidation in the liver becomes a fuel source called ketones. So people associate ketones with fat loss, okay? The reason nobody operates on ketones is because that's so difficult to do. Most people can't do it. Most people say, well, I did the Atkins diet and I was in ketosis. Not if you did the Atkins diet, because the excess protein converts itself into glucose. All right? So Atkins, high protein, high fat, you never did 80% fat, I promise you. So you might have been 50-50 protein. You were not on a low-carb diet. You just didn't know it. Okay? So, what's interesting about ketones, whether your body creates them or we tell you about how you can get them, they are what I call kinetic energy, immediate energy. In other words, when I eat food, whether it's a grape, grain, or gummy bear, doesn't matter, that's potential energy stored in my body. And the only way that potential energy can actually become energy, which is called adenosine triphosphate, called ATP, but just fancy term of sounding smart, just cellular energy, is through your pancreas creating a hormone called insulin. Okay? So for that stored food to get into my cell, there must be an insulin response. For type 1 diabetic who has a pancreas that doesn't create insulin, they have a pump that creates that insulin. If it's a type 2 diabetic whose bodies become resistant and they need more insulin than their body can produce, they have a pump. Okay? Ketones don't require insulin. So type 1, they can't make it. Type 2, they can't make enough. Type 3, Google it, it's called Alzheimer's. That's where I got super passionate about this. If you've ever experienced a parent or grandparent that has gone through that, they turn into somebody that doesn't know you, doesn't recognize you, and that's not the lasting memory you want from them. And I vowed, because of this idea, my kids will never have to see me do that. And here's why. Your brain, the cerebral tissue, think of a bunch of little light bulbs that just go out. Well, over the course of time, those cells stop getting what they need to operate. They stop getting the energy. Why? Cerebral tissue becomes resistant to insulin. But what if we could get it energy without insulin? Well, go buy the book Alzheimer's. What if there was a cure? The story of ketones? It'll change your life. It will literally change how you look at your grandparents, your parents, and you will figure out how to get ketones into their body. A lot of people do it through coconut oil. 60% MCTs, you got to do a lot, but that's why you're seeing that become so popular. But here's the takeaway. Remember, carbs, excess, stored as fat. Protein, excess, stored as fat. Fat, stored as fat. Ketones, not stored as fat, eliminated from the body. Okay, so here's this pretty interesting fuel source. You don't need insulin to use it. So the second you have it in your body, it's used. And it's not stored if there's excess. What's interesting is it has its own caloric value. That's why we say a macronutrient. There's about 5.5 to 6.5 calories per gram. In other words, a ketone has more energy than carbs and protein. Well, that's interesting. Why wouldn't I want ketones then? You would. Here's the label of this product. 7 grams of fat times 9, 63. And this is what blew my mind. You know, because I looked at the label and I was like, wait a minute, there was 100, they misprinted the label or something. There's only 110 calories, but if I add up the macros, you know, they must have missed. No. Ketones provide the sum of those calories. So there's a big difference between energy and what we've come to know as energy. In other words, energy is a caloric value from food. Energy, as we've come to know it, is a stimulant. it's fen-phen, it's caffeine, it's whatever. But it's not from a caloric value. It's not from what's called adenosine triphosphate. It's not what your body operates on. Quick review. Excess carbs, turn to fat, stored. Protein, turn to fat, stored. Fat, stored as fat, ketones eliminated from the body. Now, here's where the rubber meets the road, and this is really important, even though we don't recognize this, but whole foods. I give Jimmy credit for all this because this is all his stuff, but it's foods in their natural state. They expire. You know, they have pretty quick expiration dates. They're on the perimeter of the grocery store. So when you're walking down one of the aisles, ask yourself what you're walking down there for, right? Because typically whole foods aren't found there. Most importantly, whole foods require your body to do something. Okay? Let's look at processed foods. Processed foods, the definition might be, a machine has done what my body was going to do. So think about that. Our children, we're not making their bodies do anything on the inside. Well, why aren't they screwed up yet? Because they just haven't had enough time. We haven't fed them bad enough long enough. Right? So if you think about it, a machine has done what your body was going to do. So why is there any surprise that we're gaining weight? Why is there any surprise that we have malnutrition? Because we're not making our body do anything internally when we eat food. What does that food turn into? Stored energy, potential energy, real quickly. Requires insulin. But we didn't make our body do anything. It didn't have to work. So, how does this come to play with insulin? This is a great analogy that they came up with. And think of your house being the final destination, the mail being the energy, and then the mailman that's delivering the mail would be insulin. Okay? So to get the mail to your door requires insulin with all foods. Okay? Now, processed mail is going to be that junk mail. I don't know about you, but I don't like all that junk mail showing up. You know, the one that says I want $1 million and I scratch it off and I didn't. Right? So that junk mail, what happens? It starts to pile up. Guess what? I start to shut the door. The mailman keeps knocking. Why? Because he's got a bunch of junk mail for me, i.e. processed foods. He keeps pounding, keeps knocking. It's not getting in. So you go to the doctor and you say, hey, what does the doctor do? He sends another mailman. That's not the remedy. How do we get rid of the junk mail? How do we get energy without all the processed food? Well, I'll show you one way. Email. Think about wireless, right? Ketones can make it to your house without any mailman. I mean, to me, that's just a great word picture. Maybe I'm, a little worse than off, but I'm an ex-athlete, and that just makes sense to me, right? All of a sudden, wait a minute, you mean they could send me my bill and I don't have to rip open the envelope and I get a paper cut every time I do it? And it makes sense. Same thing here. Why wouldn't I want my bills to come to my email instead of having to walk out the mailbox? So, quick review. Glucose, energy from carbs. It's called glycolysis. That's where enzymes, through digestion, turn it into glucose. Stored as fat. It's good, but it requires insulin. Glucose from protein is a process called gluconeogenesis. That's why I call it the anti-Atkins diet, because Atkins is not low carb. It just appears so outside on the label. Okay? Ketones, there's two versions now. So we've got glucose, fuel source for humans. Ketones, fuel source for humans. How do you get ketones? Endogenously. Endo means inside. I used to be in sports endoscopy. So I was in the OR when they were repairing the ACL on the inside with cameras and all that. Endogenous ketones is when your body creates them by breaking down body fat, converting it into an energy source that your body uses. Okay? Exogenous, I can now take a scoop of powder, put it in a glass, mix it up, and drink what used to take my body 5 to 7 days. And I can prove it 100% of the time and 100% of the people with one serving, physiologically. Y'all, that's profound, and here's why. I don't pick on companies. There's great companies. I know there's a big one. I think it's called Advocare or something that's in town, right? Well, you can't prove that their shake makes it into my cell. You can tell me it does. You can show me what. But when it goes into my body, you can't show me that it performs better than what I just bought at Costco. You just can't. Now, it may. How many days is it going to take me to figure it out? I don't know. That's what's so profound, is in a nutrition industry, we're now being introduced to a human fuel source that your body prefers, doesn't require insulin, and you can get it in 30 minutes. So, what does this do? It's insulin-free energy. What do ketones do? They control your appetite. Now, here's the problem with that. As a trainer, 20 years, I don't want you to suppress your appetite. Your body is hungry. It wants to eat. If you suppress your appetite and you don't eat, what happens? Your body thinks it's starving. Do you think it's going to go get 9 calories from fat or 4 calories from carbs and protein? It's going to save the higher yielding fat, right? Why wouldn't it save? That's 9 calories. I'm going to go get the 4. Well, there's no glucose because you didn't eat. See, muscle, right? That's why sometimes when you see skinny supermodels, we call them skinny fat, because they're skinny, but they've got no muscle tone, right? So think about it. What if we suppressed your appetite? Bad thing. Here's what's interesting about ketones. They're incredibly anti-catabolic. Most people don't necessarily know what that means. Think of anabolic steroids, right? Get bigger, builds up, anabolic. Catabolic, tear down. Ketones are anti-tearing down your muscle. In other words, you leave in the morning and you don't eat till lunch. You hit the snooze, you're late, and you don't eat till lunch. You maybe have coffee or an energy drink, which is all, again, what? Stimulant, not energy, not real energy that your body needs. You don't get anything until lunch. Here's what happens. You're going to be cranky. You're going to be crabby. You're going to be hungry. You're going to have no energy. But worst of all, you've compromised. You've not preserved and protected your muscle. Your body is going to get glucose. It's gonna. So it tears down your muscle. What if, same scenario, you drank this? Well, you're not cranky because you have energy. In fact, it's insulin-free energy. It's better energy. You're not hungry because ketones are naturally appetite suppressing. Right? You have mental focus and clarity and energy, but most of all, again, unbeknownst to you, your body has been preserved and protected. Ketones are preserving and protecting. They're anti-catabolic. So now, where ordinarily your body is breaking down muscle between 7 and noon, it's not. You don't know what's going on. You still have pizza buffet either way. But for 3 or 4 hours that morning, something preserved and protected your muscle on option A or option B. What do you want? You want to preserve and protect your muscle. Weight loss versus fat loss. So weight loss is probably water, muscle, and fat. Fat loss is, what do you think? Fat, right? So using the scale is just not a good measure. I mean, it's just not, and I get it, but it is a false expectation. It just is. I mean, you can lose 3 pounds and go drink a big glass of water and gain 1, right? I mean, it's just not a great indicator. And here's the problem. Common scenario, Jenny Craig, counting points, whatever, they're flawed systems because they don't set you up for long-term success. They weigh you, like they weigh you. Here's the problem. You lost 15 pounds. Let's just say 5 muscle, 5 fat, 5 water. True story. That's probably fair. Okay? Well, here's what would happen if you did it the right way. Now imagine, these 2 people are walking into Jenny Craig, and one, the scale says you lost 15 pounds. And the other one, it says you gained 2. But they gained 5 pounds of muscle. They lost 5 pounds of fat. And glucose that is excess stored over, it's stored on 2 shelves. A little one called your liver, and the other one in your muscle. It's called glycogen. Well, if your muscles have gotten bigger, you can store more glycogen. So now, here's what happens. This person gained weight. They want to throw the scale out the window and join their friend in Jenny Craig because she lost 15. But take a closer look, and here's what happens. Going back to the very first slide. Breakdown of muscle lowers your basal metabolic rate. She lost 15 pounds, but guess what? The next 30 days are going to be very discouraging. Why? Because she's not going to lose 15 pounds again, and 15 pounds again, and 15 pounds again. As a matter of fact, she's going to go the other way. Why? Because she's probably not eating enough because she's counting points. Number 2, because she's probably doing too much cardio because her points aren't working, so she's trying to burn off more calories. So now her body thinks it's starving, and her fat-burning furnace almost doesn't exist. Now, they gained 2 pounds. Have you ever heard, muscle will burn more calories than fat? It's like 3 to 1, 30 calories per 10. Well, if I've got more muscle, I'm going to burn more calories. If I burn more calories, that means I've got a higher basal metabolic rate. It means I need more calories just to survive. Okay? So now all of a sudden, I can get away with more because I have a better, faster metabolism. So we're adding to that. And here's the other thing. The next 30 days are going to perpetually get better. Why? Okay, well, if last month I had, let's just call it 100 pounds of muscle, and now this month I have 105 pounds of muscle, what 100 pounds did to the fat, 105 pounds is going to do to even less fat. You see that, where that's going? So it's called BMI, body mass index. How much of your body is fat and how much of it is muscle? That's really the equation we want to focus on. Okay. Someone probably has told you don't eat after 6. It's funny because it's my buddy Jimmy Leach says, then why don't they just come out with on CNN, you know what, we figured it out, don't eat after 6. Right? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Okay? Eating the wrong things after 6 could be bad. But it's not about what time. Like, that is so insignificant to what you're trying to accomplish. I'm stuck. I hit a plateau. No, you didn't. You're not eating enough. And you're burning too many calories, most likely. Okay? Target heart rate equals fat loss. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But I told my clients that for 20 years. Right? The little chart that shows fat burning zone. And I tell people, hey, walk on the treadmill for 40 minutes, at 3% grade. Don't go fast. You want to stay in a fat burning mode. That's just wrong. It's just, don't do cardio and jog in place for 5 minutes as hard as you can. And you're done. Right? There's just so many fallacies out there. Muscle weighs more than fat. That's silly. We know what you mean, but it doesn't make any sense. Well, if 1 pound of muscle weighs 1 pound of fat, they weigh 1 pound, right? But it is denser, right? Does that make sense? I mean, we know it's just kind of silly. Carbs are bad. Guys, that pyramid's going to flip. You aren't doing enough cardio. Most people are doing too much. Here's the worst one. My trainer says so. Y'all trainers, I'm one. Like, I got it wrong for 20 years, and I was good. So I thought. And I mean this. Like, I don't want to be condescending, but it doesn't cost a lot of money to put a few letters behind your name. It doesn't. You know what trainers really are? Shrinks. Like, Right? I mean, I hear all the problems, and we really should get paid a lot more, but we're really psychologists and, shrinks, but that help people stay in shape. And then this one, my trainer's certified. Here's what I would say to those. Uh-oh. What happened to my sound, Shane?
Put it in the top. Come on, you're the coach.
Sorry.
It's all the deep to our trainer because Coach Rob said to.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. May God have mercy on your soul.
I don't remember what movie that is, but that's fine. So this is a profound statement, and y'all, we just have gotten away from what works, what a non-flawed system is. Tony Freeman says, how much muscle do you lose trying to lose a pound of fat? Right? Because to lose muscle, we always try to cut back calories, burn more calories, because we're trying to lose fat. Versus, how much fat do you lose if you try to gain muscle? There's no comparison. Your muscle wants to come back. Skeletal muscle, it just wants to come back. Right? It doesn't take much. I could show everybody in this room, no gym membership if you have a kitchen chair, right? Tomorrow, 3 sets of 10. Wednesday, 3 sets of 10. It literally is, it can be done. Like, you don't realize what that does versus 30 minutes on a cardio, on a treadmill. It's just silly. I don't know. We don't want to speed up the process, We don't want to slow down the process. We want to reverse the process. Like, we want to put muscle on as you age. You do. Here's the mistake, right? Metabolic rate drops. It becomes more difficult. So as that basal metabolic rate drops, it's harder to lose weight. But you don't realize that, so you're cutting back on your calories. Okay? Which can further reduce your metabolic rate. Now all of a sudden you're frustrated, you've cut back on your calories, now you're going to add in extra cardio, which on top of cutting back your calories, speeds up your loss of muscle mass even more. So like you're doing double bad when you cut back, calories and then do more cardio. The health benefits, it's not about vanity. It's just not. You'll look better in a swimming suit the more muscle you have, but you will just feel better. You'll look better. Everything, okay? So here's what we got. A product now can be delivered in 1 hour that took the human race 5, 6, 7 days of miserable dietary restrictions to accomplish. Okay? Oops. There's one more thing. Don't underestimate this hidden villain. Almost every time I ask a client, what's going on in your life? That plays a huge role in your success. Little things do. Tony asked me the other day, he said, when's the last time you actually went outside and let your skin be exposed to the sunlight for 20 minutes? Go Google vitamin D deficiency and weight loss. It's crazy. These little simple things, but we've made it so difficult. So now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to show you a fat loss formula. Throw your scale out the window. Not literally. Drink more water. I did this challenge. I said, do the 3-gallon challenge for 3 days. In other words, for 3 days, have a gallon a day for 3 days. You just I was so far off. Like if you measure your water, people will say two things every time. They'll say, yeah, I don't drink enough water. Okay, then they need to do it. And the other group will say, oh, I drink plenty of water. I promise you, if you measure it, just go buy a Deer Park gallon, fill it up, and just drink from that. You know, if it doesn't count tea, doesn't count coffee. Because here's why. A lot of times, when you think you're hungry, you're really dehydrated. Like hunger pains are really, you're not drinking enough water. Your body, everything works better. I mean, your body's 80% water. Brain's 85% water. Muscle 75% water. I mean, it's no wonder that, you know, you can go 30 days without food, 3 days without water. So it's paramount that that's just one thing you could do. Minimize sugar, regulate insulin. Okay, think about this when you leave. I want to take it easy on my pancreas as much as possible. I want to eat what will cause this to work as little as possible. Okay? Well, what makes insulin? Sugar, right? Sugar. Just try to stay away from sugar. Never mix fats and carbs in the same meal. Just think about that one, right? You know, another way of saying your trainer will say don't eat carbs at night. Well, just don't eat fats and carbs in the same meal. You know, so if you're going to have eggs, and just don't have toast with it. Okay? I mean, it's just an easy rule of thumb. Preserve, protect, increase muscle mass. Okay, we're getting to the end. Focus on fat loss, not weight loss. Get outside, get moving. Really though, the fresh air and the sun, the gym he took me today was really pretty cool. Have you ever heard of, what is it, Flex? Has anybody ever been there? Like the back of it is like a backyard, but really nice. And you can lift like outside. It's pretty cool. But just ask yourself, when was the last time I was outside for 20 minutes? Not walking at one time. I mean, I couldn't even think about it. Like, I don't know. Silly as it sounds, just Google stress relief exercises. And I'm not one of those kumbaya guys, but there really is a lot to that. There really is. Because what stress does, it creates hormones that are counterproductive with fat loss. Use your fourth macronutrient. Here's where the rubber meets the road, I think. So this company, I got passionate about ketones when my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I really understood cellular dysfunction and mutation when I got lung cancer. Okay, never smoked a day in my life, my parents both did, but I wanted to figure out why the heck, I'm a trainer. You know, when I was 24 years old, why did I get lung cancer? Never smoked. So I started looking at, you know, all these different things, and then when this fell in our lap through the University of South Florida, guys, this is just the realest thing that there is. But if something sounds too good to be true, I didn't tell you to say that. You've been programmed to believe that. So why would this product sitting on the shelf at GNC or Vitamin Shop that said, accomplish in 1 hour what takes your body 7 days for the first time since Adam and Eve? I mean, who would buy it? Nobody would. It just sounds too good to be true. So we said, well, we've got a model that will work. Network marketing. Everybody hates network marketing. Why would you do that? Because we've removed the thing that really matters. Here's what it is. It's called motive. Right? Are you calling me because you want me to sign up and tell all my family and friends to come to your house and it's terrible? Like, that's my view of network marketing. And listen to a conference call when people tell me how much money I can make, and I would have rather watch NICS or NCIS or whatever, right? Actually, Alaskan Bush people. That shows us. And they discontinued it. Like Billy died or something. I don't know. Anyhow, back on track, Rob. So think about this. We've got a product that I can prove in your body. As a company, we don't even create marketing materials. Because goodness, that's just common sense. If I'm selling the product, wouldn't my marketing materials be awful biased? Of course they would. I mean, it's kind of like, hey, this athlete endorses it. Well, are you paying him, or does he really take it? I mean, Tony Freeman will tell you. He's been on all kinds of covers of magazines and ads of products that they paid him, but it was a garbage product, right? So we just say, go Google it. Don't believe everything on Google, but look at the source. Google ketones and cancer, ketones and fat loss, ketones and sports performance, ketones and ATP production, ketones and Alzheimer's, ketones and inflammation. You know what you'll see? Yale study about ketones and inflammation, and an inflammasome called NLRP3. And anybody that takes this product and you've got inflammation problems, it's not placebo. I can show you the research.
I can prove it.
You can prove it.
I have not been able to do this in 2 decades. Wow.
Give her a hand. For those of you watching on Periscope that didn't see that, she just jumped 3 feet in the air and did a backflip. She just did a backflip. And she couldn't do it in decades. That's awesome. So think about this. We come with no motive. Now all of a sudden I say, hey, Shane, you know what? You've never referred anything, because you're wondering, is it really better than Costco? I can't prove it to you. All I can do is tell you. But oh, by the way, I'm going to sell you the dream, because it's really not better than Costco. But you can't make money with Costco, so come with me. We don't do that. That's what people don't like. What if I said, hey, go Google this, and if you know someone with an autistic child, it's on you if you should tell that parent. If you know someone struggling with inflammation or has parents in a nursing home, it's on you. I'm telling you how much it costs, what it is, and you don't have to wonder if I can prove it. Now all of a sudden I'm just kind of a messenger, which is what really network marketing should have been, but that doesn't exist with any other company. Not one. Not one. Think about how special that is for a minute. So we offer a money-back guarantee. It's a new fuel source that hasn't existed since the human race started, exogenously. And people always use wouldn't it be cool if you were with Microsoft when Bill Gates was launching it, right, in the early days? Y'all, ketones and ketosis you're with Bill Gates before computers are invented. I'm telling you, this whole ketone, ketosis, ketogenic movement and this type of supplementation is going to be the way it is. People deny it until it's evident, and then once it's evident, they have to agree. It's just that. So here's kind of the challenge. Why wouldn't everybody take this? You can put a nutritionist, a dietitian, a PhD, you can put anybody in front of me and I would just ask this question. Okay, you're currently promoting glucose, is that correct? All of them, 100% of them would say yes. 100% of them would say yes, I promote glucose, sweet potatoes, rice, whatever it is. Okay, why don't you promote ketones? The only possible answer would be, it's too hard to create that fuel source in the body. Okay, well, what if you don't have to? Oh, of course I would. Okay, well, now you can. I did a video called The Answer with No Good, or The Question with No Good Answer. Y'all, I'm the most prideful, ego, arrogant guy on the planet, and I hate to admit I'm wrong, but some of this stuff just punched me in the face. Like, I don't know a good, educational, honest answer to that question. I mean, I would love to hear it, because I would like to be the one that said, see, told you, you're not right, right? But at the end of the day, ask a nutritionist, they do not have an educated, well-thought, correct answer to that question. Well, if that's the case, and this little company called Pruvit out of Dallas, Texas, that did over 20 million in sales in their first 8 months, and nobody's even heard of this. Why? Because it doesn't exist. So like, you really are the first to tell that parent of an autistic child, or the person that's tried everything and they want to know what else they could possibly do. I mean, y'all, if this wasn't filmed and I knew everyone wasn't an FTC investigator, there's so many stories I could tell you. Like medical claims, I could just make a ton of them. totally illegal medical claims. But I can't. Like, it's amazing what this product has done. You know, so the last thing I'll say is this. We don't need to sell this product. We just need to tell people about it. And here's what will happen. It happened with a product that I was very familiar with. All of you have heard of it. It's called, let me put it this way. It's a supplement that came out in about '89. Very resistant to the market. It was naturally found in food. It's naturally produced in the body. And everyone said you can't put it in exogenously. You can't, it's impossible. Met with a ton of resistance, skepticism. Well, this past year, creatine monohydrate has generated $4 billion in sales, just in the US. And it's for performance. Guess what? Ketones, naturally found in food, naturally produced in the body. We've been met with resistance. I don't care. I'm not going to take my time to convince anybody because it will be evident. And once it's evident, they have to agree. I mean, it's just the way it is. And so we have the opportunity to go tell someone. And so all I would say is this. Nobody cares about you signing up. Just take this product for 30 days. That's it. Like, you should. If you don't think you should, just go Google ketones and whatever word might interest you. And you just can't deny what's out there. And then you say, well, where can I get it? You can't get it anywhere. Like this little old company, we're just telling people, and then you tell people, right? And so I would just say this. We're not here to sell you. We're not here to pitch you. We didn't do I don't know. We didn't invite you to come here a fat burning workshop and then we pitch you a product. But it just all fits together and makes sense. Why? Because a lot of that's hard. But what if you thought of this as brown rice or sweet potato that's going to give you energy, boiled, gross, plain chicken, which is going to give you amino acids and protect and preserve your muscle, and then, I don't know, some fiber, some broccoli, raw, gross, right? Well, that would be awesome, right? But I don't have the discipline, I don't have time to meal prep it. But what does that accomplish? Well, it gives you energy. It gives you protein, which repairs your body and protects your body. Well, that's what this does in 30 seconds. Like, it's that profound of a product. So, with that, this is like the second time I've ever done this, third time maybe. And so I don't really even know how to end it. So I'm just saying thank you for coming. Of course, we'll stick around and answer questions. You know, I'm just telling you, I know enough to be dangerous, and I'm not always right, but I'll answer as best I know how, or I'll tell you I don't know. Here's the one thing we got going on our site. Well, can a diabetic take this? Well, in the last 8 months, that question's been asked. What about someone that's on high cholesterol medicine? That's been asked. All the obvious questions have been asked, and so I can get the FAQs out because they're answered by PhDs, not Rob D's, right? And so just know that it's inevitable. Not begging you, talking you into it, saying you're an idiot. You're an idiot if you don't see it, but I mean, so we're going to stick around. There's a great crew here, people that, you know, invited this whole room. I got to get a picture of this. Can you take a picture of this? Yeah. I got one. Here, you got to be in it. You're like the biggest. He's the biggest Mike Tyson sounding guy on the planet. Everybody just stay this way. I mean, have you heard him talk? No, we're good. Thank you, Periscope. We're signing off from Lubbock, Odessa. Lubbock tomorrow night.